I'm going to assume that you've gone through the Introduction to Office Telemetry nugget because that's where I introduced all the considerations and the components and the process. And this isn't going to make any sense unless you've done that. But in this nugget, I'm going to provide you an overview of the deployment process of Office Telemetry. And then we're going to walk through the steps necessary to deploy Office Telemetry. In the event that you didn't view the Introduction to Office Telemetry, this information is all you need to know about Office Telemetry, just shy of deploying it. Now, the good thing about this is that even though you may not be able to read it from here, you can search the web for this file name right here and download this. And guess what? It's not poster size, but it's pretty good size. So what you can do is you can frame this and put it on your bedroom wall. I'm sure it will fit in with your decor. Because look what it offers for you. It offers a description of Office Telemetry. It offers a description of all the different components. It also describes what is monitored in Office 2013. It talks about the process that's used, and it provides you a screenshot of the telemetry dashboard. And it also talks about some components of the telemetry dashboard down here. So what better item to hang on your bedroom wall than this right here? So locate this, download it, print it, and be sure to frame it because it'll look a little tacky if you haven't framed it before you hang it up on your bedroom wall. Now let's take a look at the steps necessary to deploy Office Telemetry. There are 6 steps required to install and configure Office Telemetry. Our first one is the database preparation. Remember, we talked about the telemetry database, SQL Server 2005 or later. It can be the Express version that limits the cost on licensing. It can be an Express version if it's a smaller environment that you're going to be working with. And a little precaution, when configuring the database, you have to use Windows authentication. You can't use mixed mode because the telemetry dashboard doesn't support SQL authentication. If you're not familiar with SQL Server, don't worry about it. But when you get into the authentication piece, you're going to have a choice of Windows authentication or mixed mode. Make sure you blow past mixed mode and stay with Windows authentication. Step 2 is the telemetry processor setup. This is driven by a setup wizard. And this is the step where it reads the information that's been stored by the telemetry agents into that shared folder and moves that into our telemetry database down here. Our third one is to deploy telemetry agents. This guy right here. Now we don't need to do this for every client. We only need to do this for clients who aren't running Office 365 Pro Plus or Office 2013. Our fourth step is to configure the telemetry agents. And we normally do this using a group policy to deploy the settings of that telemetry agent. Our fifth step is to connect the dashboard to the database. So we're going to take this guy right here and we're going to make sure we establish a connection to the telemetry database. That's how we're going to generate our reports and view the information. Now, our sixth step is optional, but it's to configure required privacy settings over here. So if the turn on privacy settings in the telemetry agent group policy setting is enabled, your file names, your file paths, and the titles will be obscured. So this step can be used to enforce any privacy concerns that management may have. Now we're going to walk through these steps using the telemetry dashboard for Office 2013. So here we are in the Office telemetry dashboard. How you get here depends on the operating system you're running. For instance, if you're running Windows 7 or Windows Server 2008, even with R2, you can go to your Start menu, choose your All Programs, then go into Microsoft Office 2013, In there, you're going to find a category called Office 2013 Tools. And then within that, you'll find the telemetry dashboard for Office 2013. Windows Server 2012 or Server 2012 with R2, you're going to swipe in from the side using those charm thingies. You're going to choose Search to see all the apps that are installed, and then you're going to choose the telemetry dashboard for Office 2013 from there. Now, the third option, which is what I'm on, Windows 8 or Windows 8.1. You're going to go to the Start screen, and then within the search feature, you're going to type Telemetry Dashboard, and it's going to bring this up in Office 2013's Excel. So what we have here are two tabs down here, Telemetry Dashboard Guide and Getting Started. So when you first come in, you're going to land on this tab here, Office Telemetry Dashboard Guide, and it just provides you information, pretty much what we talked about in the introduction to Office Telemetry and this nugget as well. But let me just scroll down. You have an overview here. You can see how the Office Telemetry Dashboard works. We've already gone through that. And then we'll scroll down and we'll look at the Telemetry Dashboard worksheets that are available. And then once you get down here, you can see that we have an option of Let's Get Started. And if I scroll back to the top, you're going to see over here we have Let's Get Started. So this is pretty much your landing page. But if we click Let's Get Started in either location, it just shoots me over to the Getting Started option. These are the 6 steps that we already talked about. Now, you're going to see that this process, if I was to do the entire process in a nugget, would be very lengthy. So I'm going to talk you through this. We're going to go offline, and then I'm going to have another nugget on how to utilize the dashboard. So as I promised, I went offline, and I went through this just to streamline this step by step that we're going to walk through together. And I had a blast. And I'm saying that very cynically. I don't even know if cynically is a word, and I'll tell you what, I ran into some doozies as I walked through this. The first one isn't too shabby. Set up prerequisites. Fair enough. Click on this. If you don't have an instance of SQL Server already installed, you can download and install Microsoft SQL Server 2012 Express Edition. All right, already done that. We don't need to worry about this deal here. By the way, if you do so, you might want to download and install the SQL Server 2012 Express Edition of the SQL Management Studio. I spent some time in that during my troubleshooting process, so that's a separate feature you may want to install. Step 2 is where I had a blast. And I'll tell you what, sometimes I use this term IUI, which is insufficient user intelligence. I'll tell you what, I was all about IUI, underlined, bolded, exclamation points, because I pulled some doozies as I walked through this. So all this is supposed to do, very straightforward, very simple if I hadn't complicated it, is to install a telemetry processor on this computer. No big deal. By the way, if you have a 32-bit or 64-bit, you can grab these MSIs and deploy them to those systems and run those. Let's worry about this system. We're going to click on this here. We have an easy wizard. We're going to click Next. It went really fast because I've already gone through this. And then we want to run this guy right here. This is where I had fun. We need to specify our SQL Server database, and we need to specify a shared folder. We talked about that in the process. We're going to click Next. The first thing I need to do is connect to a SQL Server. Well, this is easy enough. SQL Server Express. So we'll click on that, and then we'll connect to it. Fair enough. Okay, this is where I had a brain cramp. So when I got here, I dropped this down, and there was no database. This wasn't there. It's only there because I've already executed this once. So I couldn't get to this guy. And I spent a long time. This is where I installed the SQL Server Management Studio. I thought something was wrong with SQL Server. I went into services and tried to make sure I established a connection. And I changed the account that I was using to establish the connection to the services. I did a plethora of steps in troubleshooting this. And guess what all I had to do? And a 1,000,000-watt light bulb came on when I realized this. And the reason this is not active is because I don't have a name in here yet. Now, like I said, this wasn't there. It is now. But when I did this drop down before, nothing was there. So I'm like, oh, it's not connecting to this Express version. Well, it was, dude. All you need to do is type a single letter like tsh, and bam, the create button came out. But I was so embarrassed when I remembered this, and I don't need to do this again. I just wanted to share that story with you. I'm going to bag that. We've already gone through that pain. I hope you learned from my lesson. We're going to click on this, and we're going to click next. Database permissions and database roles must be configured. You want to do it now? Absolutely. So we'll do a yes on that. Now here's where I specify my shared folder. I could use the UNC name as you see here, or I could browse for it if I want all the components to be on the same machine. And I'll go to my C drive, and I think I called this, yeah, telemetry stuff, real technical term. And then we'll go ahead and do next on that. It just gives me some information about what it's going to do for it. So we'll go ahead and do a yes. And then if I want to share information with Microsoft, I can do this right here. I'm going to go ahead and skip past that. And I'll do next. And then I'll do finish. And now I've installed the telemetry processor on this machine. This step alone took me about 5 hours because of a few issues that I ran into, which were all IUI. So it's a lot more simple than what I made it out to be. Deploy the telemetry agent. If I have Office 2003, 2007, or 2010 machines out there, I can use this to deploy the agent out to those machines. Remember, Office 2013 and the Office 365 already receive the telemetry agent. The next piece is to configure the telemetry agent. Download some administrative templates. This is where I can actually set it up for collecting data. Nothing we really need to do here. And step 5 is to connect the database. We're going to do connect to database here. And it's pre-populated for me, so I'm going to go ahead and click connect. This is a separate nugget, but I do want you to realize down here we have some additional tabs that were added to this workbook. Remember, this requires Office 2013. I'm going to actually close this out because there's not an easy way to get back to that 6th step. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to save my information, and we'll use the default name. And we'll put this in our telemetry stuff just so I don't lose it. And we'll save that out. All right, and we'll go ahead and say yes to this. Now, another reason I wanted to come in here is I'm going to go ahead and click Start. And I'm going to go to All Programs. And you're going to see under Microsoft Office 2013, we have Office 2013 Tools. And in here's where I go in for the telemetry dashboard. That's how I opened it up here. It always changes the view for me. And so let's go back into the getting started. And if I want to review the privacy considerations, which is our final step, I would click on this. And it gives me information about privacy considerations. And I got to show you this word right here, obfuscate. It's my favorite word that I learned in the 70-347 class. And all it means is to hide or make less visible file properties such as file name, file path, title of office documents that are reported in the telemetry dashboard in the event that you don't want maybe an administrator to see this type of confidential information. So remember that word and try to use it in a sentence over the next week. It's kind of a cool word. All right, we finally deployed our Office Telemetry dashboard, and make sure you visit the Using Telemetry Dashboard nugget to get an understanding of how to use this dashboard. Well, I certainly hope this nugget was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.